Hello and welcome to Simply inTAXicating. It is said that the tax administration reform and tax reform should go hand in hand. In India, most of the finance ministers in the past have focused largely predominantly on tax reforms like tax rates and tax policies, but tax administration reform was never found as a key reform area. For the first time, Government of India set up a tax reform commission headed by Dr Parthasarathy Shome, which has submitted 4 detailed reports, very exhaustive reports. Last report a few days before the Union budget was presented. A quick glance at roughly 1262 pages reports, all the 4, reveals that the commission focused largely on the policy side rather than the tax administration side. Another glaring amiss which I found was that it was a golden opportunity for the commission to talk about the GST tax administration in future. Government of India India is very poised to take a GST leap very soon. And this could have been a golden opportunity for the Commission to focus on what kind of a tax administration India should be going for when the GST is finally introduced. To discuss various aspects, some of the misses and some of the key recommendations that the Commission has given, we have 4 distinguished former revenue officials with us in the studio. We have Mr. S.S. Khan, the former member of the Central Board of Direct Taxes and also a winner of the Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration. We have Mr. D.P. Sengupta, the former Joint Secretary, TPL and also Foreign Taxation Division in the Central Board of Direct Taxes. We have Mr. Sumit Majumder, former Chairman of Central Board of Excise and Customs, and also an author on a very popular, widely acclaimed, rather 2 books, one on valuation, one on GST. Then we have Mr. T R Rustagi, the former Joint Secretary, TRU, Central Board of Excise and Customs, and also one of the key architects of the service tax laws in India. So to discuss all these aspects, I'd rather start with Mr. Khan. So looking at all the key recommendations, I find that the major focus of the Commission has been on customer focus. He's talking about the customer focus in taxpayer services. You have taken a look at it, sir. There have been several initiatives by both the boards. Of course, the focus has been in the past, even today, on the customer. Apparently, it appears that the Commission was not very happy or they found it inadequate. So how do you look at this recommendation, sir?
Yes, of course, customer focus has to be a central plank and theme of any tax administration. And on the CBDT side, if you look at our vision document 2005, from that place onwards, the 2 major planks of tax administration have been taxpayer services and non-intrusive tax investigation. Now, you will be very happy to recall that just a few days back, less than a week back, the Prime Minister has conferred award for excellence in public administration on CBDT as a whole.
Right.
And that is with reference to key areas of taxpayer services, electronic taxpayer services.
Right.
We have taken note that roughly 3.42 crore returns been filed last year electronically.
Right.
89% of all tax payments are coming online. 99% of TDS returns are coming online. All TDS certificates are being issued online. Tax refund processing has come down from more than 12 months to less than 30 days. Now, these are all areas. Of course, I am not saying that there is no scope of further improvement.
Right.
But if you look at it, I would say that is virtually, India has achieved a world record in respect of the number of e-filed tax returns. Nowhere in the world, as far as I am aware, 3.42 crore returns have been filed in 1 year electronically. And if you look at some of the statistics which are available publicly, last day, on the very last day of filing of returns, 16 lakh returns were filed on the last day. Per hour, number of returns being handled by that administration is, I think, something of, couple of thousand.
Right,
so a lot of activities have been done on the side of ICT support for taxpayer services, which have made life easier for taxpayers. There is no doubt on this. But then I completely agree with the Commission's recommendation that this focus should continue, this should continuously improve, and things should be much more easier for taxpayers. So no issue on that.
Right, sir. But one flaw, sir, which the Commission finds is that they are saying that the present focus on territorial jurisdiction perhaps is not taking us in that direction, and they should focus more on the functional vertical side.
See, this issue has been with the department off and on for last, as far as I recall, about 40 years. Way back in 1970, when we had joined government, there was a shift on functional jurisdiction, and then this was attempted for almost 3-4 years, and lots of problems cropped up, and it was given up. Instead of that, eventually what was done was that separate functional directorates were created for different kind of specialized activities. You have directorate for example, publicity, public relations, you have directorate for recovery, you have directorate for TDS, you have directorate, so those kind of things. But general assessment on a functional basis has not somehow succeeded in India.
So again, sir, he is, to extol the virtue of this functional vertical, he is talking about that greater emphasis needs to be put on a specialization such as dispute resolution, of course, ICT management, finance, tax analysis, HR, etc., etc. So is it that, sir, in the present structure it is not happening?
See, no, I can't say it generally for everything, but yes, there should be a separate directorate for taxpayer services on the income tax side, because at the moment it is spread over between 2-3 directorates. Systems is handling some part, public relations is handling some part. So a directorate of taxpayer services is certainly needed. Directorate for dispute resolution is not possible. Dispute resolution is with reference to each assessment unit, which goes to appellate function and then to tribunal and to high court and so on. So this can be looked into item by item, but some suggestions are valid.
So another I find, so this little highlighted recommendation or observation is that present structure of tax administration in India is just static. They are saying that even recent cadre review, it has gone for expansion of number of posts, but actually not looked at the allocation of resources, or rather taking resources less productive areas to more productive areas. This should be a part of the modernization of tax administration.
Again, a rather unfair generalization. I mean, just for example, international taxation has suddenly acquired great deal of importance, highlight, limelight, etc., etc. And cadre review has put a number of new posts on international taxation, on transfer pricing. So I won't agree that cadre review has not put emphasis on important areas of work. It has. We may disagree that more emphasis should have been given on a particular item. That can be a matter of discussion.
Sir, another aspect, sir, while pointing out several flaws and which have been ailing the tax administration in India, Dr. Parthasarathy has pointed out certain steps which the government of India should be taking, and one step is evolution of the post of Revenue Secretary. And of course, along with this, he has suggested that presently more financial autonomy should be given to both the revenue boards.
Now, this is again a matter which has been coming up off and on for, as far as I recall, for over 20 years. Different committees have suggested that in some form or the other. But you see, this question of Revenue Secretary's post, financial autonomy, merger of two boards, they have to be looked together. Financial autonomy certainly is called for both the boards, because they are greatly handicapped by the organizations collecting lakhs of crores of revenue every year, not having power to spend a few thousand. That's absolutely ridiculous. Merger of two boards is a completely different story. I mean, a whole lot of things have to be looked at it, because we just cannot copy things which are happening in HMRC, UK or in Canada as such here, because our conditions are quite different.
Maybe, sir, we will discuss that at length. What is your take, sir? You have been the chairman of Central Board of Excise and Customs. Financial autonomy, sir, was pointing out, that is another very critical point. And then, of course, the evolution of the Revenue Secretary post. So, what is your take on this?
If you permit, before I come to this point, I just want to supplement a few things which Kansa had said on the focus and
the customer's
focus and all, because a lot of work has been done in the CBEC side as well, as Mr. Kansa was saying, on our side, on the CBEC side. You see, there has been public grievance cells, and then there's a program called CP-GRAM, or how to issue how to make a complaint and how the complaint will be attended to electronically. The greatest thing is the computerization. Nothing could be greater service, customer service than the computation of the program. The whole idea of computation is that the contact between the taxpayer and taxman should be reduced to the minimum. Now, what is happening in customs? You see, there is self-assessment, and along with the coupled with the risk management, if a consignment is clean, it's a clean consignment, then the importer files the bill of entry electronically, and it goes only time he comes in contact with the officer is at the point of examination, which is the must, and that also percentage thing. So what I'm saying is that all these things are work in progress. It is not that, I just want to supplement what Khan Sahib has rightly said, that this is going on, and even in the Civil Service Day, our computation department, DG Systems, has also got an award for the performance, and all basically aimed at customer services. So this is one. Now I come to the question you made about the, first you asked about the Revenue Secretary, yes. Well, as he said, right from Chennai Committee report in early 90s, I suppose, and there also the recommendation was there. Now you see, there's no point in making a recommendation again and again by different committees on a top subject which is not being accepted by a number of finance ministers of different political hues. So obviously they do not want to do it, there's no flogging. But what is needed, what Khan Sahib has already said, that financial autonomy. You appoint financial advisor separately from CBDT, separately from CBEC, and once the FA clears, chairman puts up the proposal, it did not go to the revenue secretary, directly it goes to the FM. So once FA is there to keep a check that whether the money is properly spent or not, then it should go directly this thing. So abolition of the postal, I won't like to give much importance to it. It will not happen. So coming to the second thing he told about the merger of the two boards.
Maybe it's a merger we will take up as a separate point.
Shailendra, before you move on to the other points, there are two other points on customer focus.
Right, sir.
And Dr. Majumder Sahab was an ombudsman. There is one recommendation by the committee that the recommendation of the ombudsman should be mandatory, should be binding on the administration. That is one. The other is the concrete recommendation in terms of customer focus was one, the ombudsman's order should be binding, and second one was that they should be pre-filled returns for the taxpayers. Now we can perhaps have a small discussion on these 2 points.
Right, sir.
No, pre-filled returns are already there.
Yeah, but pre-filled returns will be, now what we are having is a very limited area of pre-filled returns.
No, whatever data is already there with the system, that it populates on a blank form on its own. Right. With the right to correct that or edit that to the taxpayer. So now if you're talking about picking up information from AIR and other things into a return of income, that's
maybe the integration part, sir.
That's
right, sir. But we'll go to Mr. Rustagi, sir. You have been, you have worked with several revenue secretaries, several finance ministers. What is your experience? What is your take on this aspect, sir? Particularly this financial autonomy side, the customer focus side, and also the evolution of the revenue secretary post.
I think, very frankly speaking, it depends who writes the report and who comments on the report. If MPs write, they write a different kind of report. If economists write, he writes a different kind of report. If ex-officials of the Government of India write, they write a different kind of report. So there is an element of bias on the writing part as also on the comment part. When you comment as an ex-Government of India official, probably your comment is also biased to some extent by your experience, by the way you have been working, and by the ideas you have gathered during the course of your experience. And sometimes there is a bias of defending the past, that what has been done, perhaps that was correct and there is not much need of improvement in it. But the fact remains, he makes an important point that in public institutions, including government departments, including tax department, there is a need of fundamental reform every 10 years at least. He is making that important point. He is looking ahead that 10 years or 20 years ago, India's tax structure, India's tax administration must be a modern tax administration. I remember that even Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he was Prime Minister, he used to make a statement that we will put in world-class tax administration in this country. So every Prime Minister makes that statement that we will put in a world-class tax administration. But the fact remains that so far what has been done, the Commission recognizes that what has been done, great service has been done, and both the boards have done wonderfully well in bringing the reforms. But these reforms fall short of the fundamental reforms. Fundamental reforms are something different from incremental reforms. Incremental reforms we do on the basis of our experience, on the basis of immediate need. But fundamental reform is something that you have to do, keeping in view what should be the structure, what should be the tax administration 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead or 20 years ahead. So looking from that perspective, I feel that he is making some fundamental points. One important point which he is making is that it is like a public-private partnership in government functioning. That it is not that the entire functioning of the tax administration or the tax department should be confined to revenue officials or you take IAS or any other service. He is making a fundamental departure, having regard to perhaps the international experience also, that you need to introduce experts in this field, you need to introduce some people from outside so that a holistic view can be taken to give efficient tax administration to this country. So in that context, he is making a statement that the post of Revenue Secretary perhaps is leading to inefficiency rather than efficiency. Maybe theoretically he is right that it may be leading to inefficiency, but as Mr. Majumder rightly says, that having regard to the type of civil service structure we have this in country, and having regard to the way the politicians deal with civil services, this recommendation has been made by several committees that you should not have the post of Revenue Secretary. Maybe theoretically it is okay, but the other point that the tax focus, the focus on the taxpayers or the customers, whatever he says, that I think is an important aspect because it looks at the entire thing in proper perspective, that the taxpayers must feel comfortable, the taxpayers must pay the tax which is legitimately due, and the taxpayers' grievances or complaints, etc., they must be looked into, as speedily as possible. So it is in this context that he is emphasizing that the role of looking at the need of the service to the taxpayers or to the customers.
Sir, he is suggesting that in order to provide taxpayer services, the prevailing system of geographical jurisdiction should be done away with and go for a vertical kind of system.
That is, the existing should be done away
with
and go for a vertical.
Functional verticals.
A functional vertical, it makes sense, I think, to some extent, that in the sense that ultimately this specialized kind of services have to be provided, and therefore the vertical system has to be appreciated in that context. So he is making that recommendation in the context of the need of the taxpayers, that the present structure falls short of giving proper service to the taxpayers. So I think it does make sense to me.
I may just add here, this functional jurisdiction is workable in big cities. Now, where these are the rural areas, where in a huge jurisdiction, you can't have functional, it has to be territorial. Then you won't have, in a particular function, you may not have any work at all. So there, actually, that is why it was tried also that item-wise in Bombay, for example, in Mumbai, the central excise, the divisions first was tried on the basis of items. Then again it was territorial, it didn't work well. So that may be tried in the big cities, but not on the rural areas.
That is the point. There are some activities which can be done centrally on a vertical formulation. Things like publicity or systems or Directorate of System, Directorate of Recovery. And those have been done. Maybe their role can be enhanced or have been relooked. But main function of assessments, that cannot be done on functional basis, because it was tried, and I know it caused a lot of dislocation way back in 72 to 75 when this was attempted in the first round.
It is there in the customs, like in the appraising groups, that first is the food items and the chemicals, then plastics, then the metals, and all those things. If customs is possible, is one big roof, all the officers are there, this is possible in one place. That's the thing.
So now we will move to the other dimensions of the key recommendations, where he is talking about, of course, the merger of the two boards. But before the merger is achieved, he has given a roadmap where he is talking about that two different bodies should be created. One will be called the council, the tax council, and the other will be, of course, this basically the research side, so the tax policy and analysis, the TPA side. So maybe, sir, we will start with Mr. Sengupta. Sir, I mean, you would like to comment on this side, sir, that merger of tax policy analysis, where he is talking about
That
the
is TRU and
TPL, sir. Yes.
I think first of all, let us dispose of this question whether merger of the two boards per se is desirable or not, and then move into, if that is not desirable, what is the next item which can be merged?
Right, sir. Right. So maybe, sir, then maybe, sir, you would like to comment on this merger side.
I'll tell you from personal experience during.
Maybe, sir, this we will take up this issue after the break, sir, if you don't mind, sir.
63, 64.
Sir, we will take up this. We will start with this, the merger side after the break. We will take a short break and we will continue with the same question.